I never thought a slip of paper could change my life, but that's exactly what happened the night I checked my lottery numbers against the ticket sitting on my kitchen counter. $12 million. I sat there staring at my phone screen for almost 10 minutes before I could even breathe right. I'm Lauren. I clean houses for a living, and I'd spent the last 6 years taking care of my mother, Carolyn, who has arthritis so bad some mornings she can't even hold a coffee cup. We didn't have much. We clipped coupons and skipped meals sometimes so she could afford her medication. And now, out of nowhere, I was sitting on more money than I'd ever imagined. My first instinct wasn't to scream or call everyone I knew. It was to keep my mouth shut. I'd heard the stories, how lottery winners get swarmed by long-lost cousins and fake friends the second the news breaks. I wasn't about to let that happen to me. Before I even claimed the prize, I decided I needed to know something first. Who in my life actually loved me, and who was just sticking around because it was convenient? So I came up with a plan. I told everyone close to me that my mother needed emergency eye surgery and that I was $1,000 short. It wasn't true, but it was believable. And $1,000 felt like the right number. Enough to matter, but not so much that it would scare anyone off from helping if they truly cared. I texted my ex-boyfriend Justin first. We'd broken up 8 months earlier, but he still liked to remind me we were meant to be whenever he was bored. His response came fast. Lol, $1,000? I don't have money for your mama's problems. Maybe get a real job, he wrote, and then blocked me before I could even respond. That stung more than I expected, but it also told me everything I needed to know. Next was my sister, Heather. Heather lived in a nice house in the suburbs with her husband, drove a car nicer than anything I'd ever owned, and never once offered to help with Mom's bills. When I texted her, she called me instead, her voice dripping with that fake concern she always used when she wanted to sound caring without actually doing anything. Lauren, honestly, this is why you need to plan better. I can't just hand out $1,000 because you didn't save for emergencies, she said. I reminded her I'd been the one taking care of Mom while she lived 2 hours away and barely visited. She sighed like I was the unreasonable one and changed the subject. Then there was my cousin Eric, who claimed he was totally broke right now. The same week he posted pictures from a resort in Cancun, sipping something with an umbrella in it. I didn't even bother responding to his message. I just closed the app and felt something in my chest go cold. Even my boss, Barbara, whose house I'd been cleaning for 3 years, shut me down without hesitation. Lauren, I like you, but my personal finances aren't your business, and yours aren't mine. This is a work relationship, she said, like I was asking her to adopt me instead of asking for a loan I fully intended to repay. It wasn't really about the money by that point. It was about how easily people I thought cared about me turned their backs the second it cost them something. I was ready to give up on the whole idea, convinced I really was alone in this world, except for my mother, when there was a knock at my door. It was Martha, my elderly neighbor from 2 doors down. Martha lived alone on a fixed income, and I knew she'd been saving up all year to fix her leaking roof before winter hit. She stood there in her cardigan, holding out $500 in cash, folded neatly in an envelope. "It's not the full amount, honey, but it's what I have," she said. "I know it's not enough, but I couldn't sit here knowing your mama needs help and do nothing." I stood in my doorway and cried right there in front of her. Martha didn't have much, and what she did have, she was willing to give up for a roof over her own head just to help my mother's eyes. That's when I knew my test was over. I didn't need to ask anyone else. I claimed my prize quietly through an attorney, avoided the press as much as I could, and started making decisions with a clear head instead of an emotional one. The first thing I did was get my mother the best doctors money could buy. No more choosing between rent and her prescriptions. Then I bought a modest but comfortable house. Nothing flashy. And I asked Martha to move in with us. She cried when I told her, saying she couldn't accept something so big. But I told her this wasn't charity. It was payment for the only real kindness anyone showed me when I had nothing. I didn't want to just sit on my winnings either. I wanted to build something that mattered. So I opened a beauty salon and called it Second Chance. I made it a point to hire women who'd had a hard time finding steady work. Single mothers, women coming out of rough situations, people other employers overlooked. I brought on a woman named Janet, who'd been turned away from a dozen jobs because of gaps in her resume, and another named Megan, who was raising 3 kids on her own. I paid fair wages, gave benefits most small salons don't bother with, and made sure everyone who walked through that door felt respected. Word got around fast, and within a year, Second Chance was one of the busiest salons in town. A local news station picked up my story after one of my clients mentioned it to a reporter. The woman who won millions and quietly built a business helping other women get back on their feet. I agreed to one interview, thinking it might inspire people. I had no idea how fast that clip would spread once it hit the internet. Suddenly, people who hadn't spoken to me in months were sliding back into my messages like nothing ever happened. Heather called first, all sugar and sweetness, talking about how sisters need to stick together and how she'd always believed in me. Justin texted next, saying he made a mistake, that he saw the interview and realized what he'd lost, that he wanted to try again. Even people I barely remembered from high school started commenting on my posts like we'd been best friends all along. I wasn't interested in playing nice just because the cameras were on now. Heather, you had every chance to be there for me, and Mom, for years, not just after I got money, I told her over the phone. Family doesn't show up because it's convenient. It shows up when it's hard. She tried to argue, said I was being cold, but I hung up before she could finish. I wasn't going to let her guilt me into pretending the last several years hadn't happened. Justin was worse. He showed up at the salon one afternoon, flowers in hand, acting like the last text he sent me didn't happen. "Lauren, come on, I was going through a rough patch. I didn't mean any of that," he said, trying that same charm he always used to get his way. I looked him dead in the eye and told him the truth. I've moved on. I'm with someone now who loved me before he knew I had $1 to my name. I was talking about Scott, a contractor I'd met while renovating the salon. A man who never once asked about my bank account, who showed up early and stayed late just because he wanted to help, not because he wanted something from me. Justin didn't have a response for that. He just stood there for a second, then walked out. The most surprising turn came almost a year later. Barbara, my old boss, the one who told me my personal problems weren't her concern, walked into my salon looking like a completely different person. Her husband had been running some kind of investment scheme that collapsed, and it took everything they had with it. The house, the cars, all of it. She was there asking if I had any job openings. Every part of me wanted to remind her of the day she looked at me like I was asking for the world over $1,000. Instead, I offered her a job as a cleaner in my own salon, the same kind of work I used to do for her. I made sure she understood something before she accepted it. Everyone who works here gets treated with respect, Barbara, no matter what job title they hold, I told her. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and took the job. I didn't do it out of pity. I did it because I refused to become the kind of person who treats people the way I was treated when I had nothing. On the 1-year anniversary of the salon opening, which happened to fall close to my mother's birthday, I threw a celebration for everyone who'd been part of my journey. Employees, close friends, my mother surrounded by people who genuinely loved her. In front of everyone, I called Martha up and handed her an envelope. Inside was the deed to a fully paid-off apartment. No mortgage, no strings attached. "This is for the $500 you gave me when nobody else would," I said, my voice shaking. "You didn't have much, but you gave me everything you had. I'll never forget that." Martha broke down crying, and honestly, so did half the room. Standing there that night, looking at my mother laughing with people who actually cared about her, watching Martha hug her new set of keys like they were made of gold, I realized something. Winning that lottery ticket wasn't the best thing that ever happened to me. The real prize was learning exactly who deserved a place in my life and who didn't. Money came and went for plenty of people I knew, but loyalty, the kind Martha showed me on my worst day, that's something no jackpot could ever buy. I built a new life surrounded by honesty and real love. And for the first time, I understood what it actually meant to be rich.